Good afternoon. It is Friday afternoon. You know what? The weeks in politics, weeks just melt away. You can go from one week to the next. It's going to feel like we're going to be in June, and before you know it, we're going to be in June. And this spring legislative session, which started on Tuesday, is going to be all over. And in fact, what's interesting about getting back into the legislature is a lot like getting back into school. You get in there, there's bells, they ring, everybody gets sick, and that's what happened to me this week. I got sick, I got a cold, so I look tired. And by the way, I haven't been able to convince anybody to invest in lighting for this second episode of the Public Circle Live. This is our weekly attempt to continue to connect with the constituency of Saanich North in the Islands, where we talk about the issues of the past week and look forward to some of the things that are coming up in the week to come. This show is entirely produced. It's a one-man show, so I don't have a graphics person, so that's the reason why I've done this. You are watching the Public Circle Live with Adam Olsen from the constituency office in Saanich North in the Islands. This is a lot of fun. You know, Facebook gives you the ability to have your own show, and I'm really happy to do it. If you want to contact us, you can. You can visit my website, adamolsen.ca, or you can send us an email right here to adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can ask us some questions because later in the show, we're going to try to answer a question in a segment called It's Not Called Answer Period, which is what they do, which is what they say about question period. You know, you can ask as many questions as you want, but don't expect to get an answer because it's not called answer period. And so we've got that special section coming up later on. I've even created a nice little graphic for that. It's not called answer period, but that's not coming until later in the show. If you want to get a hold of us, you can. You can find us on Facebook at Olsen for MLA, on Twitter at Adam P. Olsen, or on Instagram at Adam Philip Olsen. Find us on social media. You've already found us on Facebook because that's the only place that this is broadcasting. I want to say hi to the 4 people that are watching right now, just to make sure that you know that I see the love that you're showing us today. So again, the Public Circle Live is an opportunity for me to connect, for me to broadcast some of the things that are going on from our constituency office here in Sidney. I'm going to hit the 3 things this week that I'd like to talk about, and then I just want to let you know that I've got a very special guest. The very, very first special guest is the Premier, and that is my hook. We have the Premier in the office today, and so hang around. I'm going to talk about 3 things, and then we'll get to a really quick interview. Well, actually, we'll go for as long as the Premier wants to talk about us. So, talk with us. So, for the 3 things today, for this week that I'm going to talk about in today's episode of Live, the second episode. We've done it 2 weeks in a row, by the way. I'm very excited about that. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is Kinder Morgan. And this is a big issue. It's a big issue in our riding in Saanich North in the Islands. And I've been watching as this whole thing unfolds. In fact, I was an intervener, one of the few interveners that was allowed into the process. I made it through the piece, through the process. NEB figured that I was directly affected. I was able to be an intervener. I've watched this process from the very beginning. And so when the Prime Minister stood up and said that the science was in, the evidence was there, and they were approving the Kinder Morgan pipeline because he was confident that it was okay for our environment and everything was fine. Don't worry about it. Just look the other way. Everything will be all good. I knew in reality that what I saw in that National Energy Board process was the complete opposite. I saw a process in which there was no cross-examination, no oral cross-examination, no way to test the evidence. My colleague, Andrew Weaver, was also an intervener in that, talked an awful lot about the ocean. He knows an awful lot about ocean, wave activity, weather. Of course, he's a climate scientist. And he was an intervener both as an MLA and as well as a climate scientist. And clearly the National Energy Board did not do a good enough job in order to convince or to alleviate any fears that we might have. What would happen if diluted bitumen made it into the natural environment, made it into the Salish Sea? All the First Nations on the Saanich Peninsula, the Saanich First Nations that have lived and worked and played in the Salish Sea, fished in the Salish Sea and harvested natural resources, those resources that made us wealthy people for countless generations, were very, very concerned about the impact that it would have on the environment and the impact that it would have on their ability to harvest, our ability to harvest, were ignored. The Prime Minister basically told the Saanich people that they were outside the national interest when he argues that this project is inside the national interest. And so when it came to Kinder Morgan, and it came to January the 30th, when our Environment Minister stood up and said that they were going to take a closer look at what the Royal Society of Canada had said, that we don't know how diluted bitumen, we do not have enough information to be able to say with certainty, with confidence, that we can protect the Salish Sea, that we can protect the Southern Gulf Islands and the Saanich Peninsula and the beaches and all of the important resources of the Salish Sea, when the Royal Society of Canada says that in their study that we need to look further into this. So when the provincial government, when Environment Minister George Heyman said that we are going to appoint a panel to look into this, it made me very happy, and I know that it is in the protection and the interest of the people of Saanich North and the islands that we get this work done before they increase tanker traffic through our riding by sevenfold, before we put the threat into the environment or increase the threat to our environment, to our economy, and to our society. I was very happy to hear that the Environment Minister had done this. Now, the Prime Minister has come out and basically said that British Columbia is wrecking the climate action strategy, that the Ocean Protection Plan was relied on this Kinder Morgan pipeline, playing politics, playing with rhetoric, playing a very, very dangerous game, because of course we know that British Columbia is not ruining the climate action strategy. If anything's ruining the climate action strategy, it's exporting diluted bitumen and more fossil fuels. But nonetheless, we'll leave that to another day. The reality is that the Prime Minister is playing with words and is playing with our coastline and with our riding. And you can guarantee, as the representative of Saanich North and the Islands, I will continue to stand up for this place, and I will continue to ensure that the things that we allow to go forward, the processes, the public processes that we have, protect the interest of Saanich North and the Islands. It is important that I point out that there's a double standard here. Because on one hand, the National Energy Board wasn't good enough for a pipeline heading east, but yet it's good enough for a pipeline heading west. This is how I know, this is how I feel confident that we are playing political games here, and that the science and the evidence that I have referred to at the very beginning, that the Prime Minister referred to as being the reason why the pipeline was able to be approved, why this is just political games. So that was item number one. Kinder Morgan will continue to stand up for our coastline, and I'll continue to stand up for the Saanich North and the Islands, the Gulf Islands, and the Saanich Peninsula, this pristine place. I will always stand up for this place. Item number two, and I invite you to take a look at my response to this throne speech. On Tuesday, the throne speech was read by the Lieutenant Governor, and just in broad terms, I'll say that I'm quite happy with the direction of the throne speech. And as I highlight in my response, I think that there's a lot of words and a good direction, but it's light on action. It's light on telling us how the government is going to achieve the goals that it sets out in the throne speech. So I encourage you to go to my website. It is still adamolsen.ca, this one right here. Go to my website. You can see the video of the throne speech that I posted that I delivered yesterday, and I've posted it on my website. You can see it right on the home page. And what you'll see is that I've outlined some of the main pieces that they've housing, childcare, mental health, healthcare, Indigenous relations, and a number of others. And I've also showed that the work that we've done in the public circle to understand our riding, to get a better understanding of what's happening in our riding, and how we can connect the initiatives that they've put forward in the throne speech to the needs and opportunities in our riding. I connect the two. So I invite you to go check out my response to the throne speech and share it. Share it on social media. Share it with your friends because, you know, this new Facebook algorithm, it makes it more difficult to share. So I could use your help in sharing the content so people can see it, so people can see what their MLA is doing, whether they agree or disagree. And then you can get back to us. You can email us with your thoughts and your feedback right here at adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can send us your feedback about what you think about the throne speech response that I delivered. That was number 2. Number 3 is next week, another critical piece to the government's agenda, the budget. So in the throne speech, they outline the initiatives that they want to that they're going to focus on. The priority of government is outlined in the throne speech, and then the second piece to that is the budget. It's coming down next Tuesday. And you can see where the government is going to, and we'll see where the government is going to invest. I'll have another speech and be able to respond to the budget, and I look forward to that opportunity. I think the one piece that we're really looking forward to is the initiatives that the government's going to take on housing. We've been waiting a long time for these tax initiatives to deal with the speculative impact on our real estate market. So I look forward to that piece coming forward on Tuesday. On Monday, and this is just a plug for what I'm going to do on Monday, I get my first question period for this spring session. And on Monday, I'm going to be asking about agriculture, agricultural land reserve, agricultural land commission, and specifically the production of cannabis. And as I mentioned last week, this is a big issue in our riding. And so I'm going to be asking about that because, it's an important issue, and it's one that is specifically hitting Saanich North and the Islands. So, as I promised, our very first special guest. That's right. I'm very, very, very proud to be able to say in my second episode of the Public Circle Live, I have the Premier. He's here in our constituency office in Sidney, BC. He is the Premier of the BC Youth Parliament. Tricked you. His name is Sky Losier. Let's get rid of this. Sky, say hi to all of our 6 fans that we have so far. Hi to the 6 people.
Hello, everyone.
This is Sky Losier. Sky is, when he came in the office earlier today wearing his British Columbia Youth Parliament sweatshirt, I thought, hey, why not invite Sky to come in and talk about the BC Youth Parliament? But tell people who you are, where you're from, where you were born, where you were raised, where you went to school.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's Sky?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Adam. It's really exciting to be here on the second episode. I feel like it might have been a bit of a letdown. In a couple of news articles, they quoted me as the Premier in quotation marks. But I like to think, in the youth world, I got a little bit of say.
He's the Premier. He's going to tell us about that in a minute. But.
So I grew up on the Southern Gulf Islands. I grew up on Mayne Island in the Salish Sea. And
he's a constituent.
Yeah, a constituent of Adam and Elizabeth. And I grew up in this riding, and now I'm attending school at the University of Victoria studying political science and human dimensions of climate change, which is in large part due to the passion that I developed for the environment, that I developed living in such a pristine environment as the Salish Sea.
So tell me, you went to the Gulf Islands Secondary School.
Yeah, correct.
So
I
tell
went
me
to
about
high
that.
school on Salt Spring Island,
Right.
which is where I learned a lot about politics. People often say Salt Spring is a body of opinions surrounded by water.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. So yeah, I went to high school in Salt Spring, lived on Mayne Island, commuted back and forth.
How does that work?
We go on a boat. So it's a school bus.
So your school bus is a school boat.
Exactly. We call it the water taxi.
Right.
And yeah, it was involved with student council in high school.
Right.
Involved with a lot of clubs. And then in grade 12, in my last year of high school, I was walking down the hallway and I saw a poster that said, join the BC Youth Parliament. And at the time, I was getting interested in politics, and I thought, hey, that sounds fun. I think I was the only person to apply in my year for my school. I can say proudly that we have 6 people from my past school, including 6 current and alumni in this year's Youth Parliament. So we've grown it up on the islands a little bit.
Right.
And then 5 years later, I'm still involved, and I'm the premier.
5 years later. So tell me the process. Tell people who don't know what... I've been to the Youth Parliament now twice, I believe. I was invited to speak, and I was at a part of a panel in December this time around. So tell people who might not know what the Youth Parliament is. What is it? What do you do?
Yeah, so we're a youth non-partisan, non-denominational service organization for youth between the ages of 16 to 21. And we have 97 members each year from across the province of British Columbia. So we have members from Mayne Island, we have members from Pender, we have members from Victoria, Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, the Southern Interior, the Northern Interior. And every year in December, we gather from the 27th through the 31st in the Legislative Assembly and sit as legislators. And that's where we plan our activities for the year ahead. So some of our activities that we run, and the one that I want to talk about you a little bit later, is we run regional youth parliament. So there's our project that gives high school age students, so 14 to 18 year olds, the opportunity to participate hands-on in the Westminster democratic system. And then we also operate a summer camp at the end of each summer called Camp Phoenix, which children who wouldn't otherwise be able to attend summer camp the opportunity to do so.
Right. And so you actually put forward legislation, just like we do, just like the MLAs do. Put forward legislation, you debate it, and then you vote on it.
Exactly.
It's very similar to what we do.
We try to follow the process. We have committee stages of bills. We have select standing committees. We have committees of a whole. We have a supply act that governs about $45,000 of real money. So we try to follow the process as closely as possible. With perhaps a little bit more humor injected into the process at times.
Well, I can tell you that the BC legislature sure could use more humor from time to time. It is a pretty dry place, but that's maybe the reason why we all get a cold when we go back. So what kind of bills were put, what kind of legislation, I guess what kind of bills are put on the table? Because they become legislation once we've voted.
So we have 2 types of bills and legislation. We have government bills and then we have private members' bills. So our government bills are written and designed by my cabinet, and those outline our yearly activities. So we have a Parliamentary Activities Act, which outlines how our members are going to go out into their communities after a session and do service projects. They're going to go work, volunteer with a local reading group or go volunteer at their local SPCA to make sure you understand the community service part of politics. And then we have the Camp Phoenix Act, which authorizes us to run our summer camp. And then we have the private members resolutions, which give our members the chance to have an opinion, write down their opinion in favor, in support of, or in opposition to a certain subject. And then then we have a debate in the House, and people stand up on both sides, and then we vote on that, and we're either in favor of this position as a parliament, or we're opposed to this as a parliament.
Right. So how did you become premier?
So I was elected premier last year, and then I became premier this year. So I was elected by a vote from the 97 members
from amongst your peers.
Yes, correct.
Do you know how many people voted for you?
No, we do not find out. We only find out the winner. We don't find out any of the other results. So
you don't know what kind of mandate you have.
I like to think a lot.
Probably
more than 50%.
Probably more than. Well, that's a good answer. More than 50% supported him to become the premier. But you did mention you have a government side, and so people often wonder, well, how would it work if there was a bunch of independents? When basically you work as independents, there still is a governing side of the House and an opposition side of the House to make it function.
Yeah. Well, so there's not so much. There's a shadow cabinet, and then there's a cabinet.
And then there's members at large?
And then everyone else is an independent member. So regardless if they're sitting on the government side or the opposition side, they get to vote, in favor of other amendments. And it's a really collaborative process. Obviously, cabinet brings forward their legislation and we think, well, this is great. And then someone stands up and says, well, what about this that you guys might never have thought of? And we say, oh, we didn't think of that. And then, this first year member and someone will go and help them write an amendment, and then they amend the bill, and then we talk about the amendment, and then it passes or fails, and often they pass and the bill is changed, and then so the product that we go in with isn't always the same that we come out with.
You mean bills can be amended and bills can be improved?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's a novel idea.
It'd be nice to see that, at the provincial level.
Well, we're working on that. We're absolutely working on that. And I think that what you've seen, what hopefully the people of British Columbia have seen, is that a minority government is more collaborative. It requires more collaboration, and that we're hoping to move it towards that. So you mentioned earlier that. Oh, I have one more question, and then we'll get to how long are you premier for, and when do they kick you out?
So I'm premier from October 1st,
yeah.
And so October to December we spend. I select my cabinet and we spend planning our session and what we're going to propose to do, and then I'm premier until September 30th. Right. So I'm premier from October 1st till September 30th. And then I have 7 or 8 months left to go.
Right, and then are you done youth parliament?
And
after
then
this?
Yeah, I'm 21 now, so I'll be 22 by the time comes, and I'm too old.
So is the premier always one of the most senior members of the?
Yeah, not necessarily they're not necessarily always in their last year, but yeah, usually in their last year or two. You gotta work your way up.
Well, and that's true. It's important to have the experience and to be able to show the leadership. Sure. So you mentioned that you wanted to talk about. Let's talk about two things. Let's talk about first Camp Phoenix.
All right.
What is that, and how could people get involved? We just gained a viewer, by the way. We've now got 5.
Nice.
This is going to grow.
It was at 7 for a little while.
Oh, was there? Okay. Anyway, so Camp Phoenix.
Yeah, so Camp Phoenix is a project that's really important to me. I was the minister of Camp Phoenix last year, so I was in charge of running it. And it's a summer camp for children who wouldn't be otherwise able to attend summer camp. So whether that's, their family can't afford to send them to summer camp, they have, ADHD or, ADD, which means they need one-on-one attention, or, any variety of other medical or social or economic reasons that you wouldn't be able to go to, your typical day camp, they can come to Camp Phoenix. And we have a 1 to 2, so 1 camper to 2, or 1 staff to 2 camper ratio, which is unheard of in the summer camp industry. And our staff is completely volunteer.
Oh, so, that's fantastic. So where is it? When is it? How do we find out more information about it?
Yeah, so 2 things.
Okay.
First, the other part is completely volunteer run, which makes it quite affordable, but it still costs about $13,000 to $14,000 to operate a camp for 48 kids and 40 or so staff. So we fundraise throughout the year, and we're always looking for help with that.
He's good. So donate to Camp Phoenix because it's well worth it. So where can people donate?
So you can go to www.bcyp.org, and that's our website, and you'll see a box that says Camp Phoenix. And on that box, it'll have the information about if you're interested in donating, or it also has the information about if you're interested in sending your kid to camp. And so this year, it's located in Saanich, so just outside of the constituency. And it's running the last week of August. So I believe it's 5 days. It's a sleepaway camp at Camp Bernard from August 27th through 31st.
It's in the riding of the actual premier.
We'll get him to give us some money.
Yeah, well, hey, ask. You never know. So bcyp.org.
Yeah.
bcyp.org.
Yeah.
Or you could email us here and we'll tell you about it. Or you can just Google BC Youth Parliament. Okay, so the second piece, the piece that you actually said that you wanted to talk about, we're finally there now, and that was
regional youth
parliaments. Tell them about it.
So it's an opportunity for high school age students. That's why I want to talk with you. Provincial government and the high school ties in a lot together to get their hands, get a hands-on experience in a Westminster parliamentary system. So basically, what we do is we run 6 throughout the province in each region. So we run 1 in Prince Rupert in the southern interior, the Lower Mainland, 1 on the island. And it gives it's basically a mini youth parliament. So we go into a high school and we set up rows just like in the chamber, and we have a speaker, and we have a mace and a sergeant at arms and a lieutenant governor. And it gives kids, the chance to learn about their system of governance and how everything works and how the laws that, built their school are there.
Right.
And something that I've noticed, I've been really fortunate to have the opportunity to travel across the province and, have countless conversations with, 14 to 18-year-old youth. And something that I found is it's shocking how little they're taught in school about our democratic systems. And so I was wondering to get maybe your take on what the provincial government and, schools and stuff can do to increase that engagement amongst youth.
So, is that your question to me?
Yeah.
Because I asked you to ask me a question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on a second. Let's hold on a second. It's not called answer period. That's to promote it, because I might not answer your question. Well, I might not answer this question.
I'm going to hold you to it.
No, I'm going to answer this question. But this is the segment. It's not called answer period. Okay, that's just we're just trying to have a little bit of fun. So the question about how to, what's really interesting is yesterday. So the timing of this is fantastic. Yesterday, I had a young man by the name of Hunter Lestuka. Do you know Hunter from Stellies? Anyway, so Hunter job shadowed down at the legislature yesterday. And one of my favorite things about this job is being able to go to the schools and to meet with students. And one of the things that we did was we got Hunter an audience with the Minister of Education, with Rob Fleming, who I've known for a long time. And Hunter is very, very involved in politics, very involved in political science. He's in grade 11 at Stellies. And he was very, very concerned about the new curriculum and concerned that civics don't seem to be a major piece of that, and that teachers, there seems to be some flexibility as to whether or not it needs to be taught or not, and that was what he brought as a concern to the Minister of Education. So clearly, if kids do not feel educated, if youth are not being educated about our system of government, they don't know anything about it, the likelihood of youth then voting and taking part in our democracy is very low. And so for me, I think it's very important as the MLA for Saanich North and the Islands to take the time to go to schools. It doesn't matter what grade. I'll go to a kindergarten class. It doesn't matter. There's something for us to talk about. There's at least something for an opportunity for them to see the person who represents them, to talk to them, to ask questions. And so it's a very, very important piece for me. When I've now been invited by BC Youth Parliament to go twice, I immediately took them up on the offer, just simply because, actually it wasn't immediate this year. I had to say, Emily, are we going to be away on the 27th? And she said no, and then I said, okay, immediately I'm going. Because, it's important that all ages in our society feel that their government is inclusive, that we are accountable, that we are transparent, and that we'll actually answer questions. So despite the name of this segment, it is important that we are there to answer questions and that we are providing good access to students, to youth, and it's important for me as the representative here in this riding. Did I do a good enough job of answering?
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job too.
Well, don't say that.
Well, it's true.
We'll
just got to be a little proud.
So here's the deal. Okay? Because I want to continue asking and answering questions. You can send a question to me at adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can ask me a question. Put TPC or the Public Circle Live in the subject bar, so that we know that that's what it's for. And you can ask me a question. And next Friday at 4:30 p.m. on my Facebook channel, or later on my YouTube channel, because I'll be posting it there, I'll answer it. Or I'll answer a question, or I'll answer a couple of questions, depending on how long I talk for, or how long my next surprise guest's for. I can't promise you that I'm going to have the premier with me. But thanks a lot for stopping in. Well, I mean, this literally happened at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I said, Sky, come on in. Let's go. Let's do it. So you're watching the Public Circle Live. Thank you for taking some time with us today. If you want to get a hold of us, you can visit my website at adamolsen.ca. There's my email address, Send us an email if you have any questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions. If you want to book a meeting because you've got an issue that needs to be dealt with and you need some advocacy, please send us an email. Let us know. If you want to connect with us, I know that you're already with us on Facebook, Olsen for MLA, right here at Twitter, Adam P. Olsen, or right here at Adam Philip Olsen for Instagram. You know what? I don't have enough views on my YouTube channel to be able to give a YouTube, but we're getting there, and we hope that you will share this. Thank you for watching this, the second episode of the Public Circle Live. We are going to continue doing this because I believe in being accountable and being transparent and letting people know what's going on. So thank you for taking some time to share. Until next week at 4:30, same time, same place on Facebook or on YouTube. Hopefully next week I'll have convinced the people in this office to buy some lights so that we can start to turn this from being a one-man show with paper. Although these titles are pretty good, aren't they?
I was impressed.
That's pretty good, isn't it? Oh, the Public Circle Live. Thank you for watching. Until next week, Hayekwa.